On the telephone, I have Chris Keeble, writer and producer of Pearl, the Janis Joplin story that's coming to Bendigo. How you doing, Chris?
I'm very well. Good morning to everybody.
Now, Chris, tell us about why you chose Janis Joplin and how you came to go from there to actually producing the show itself.
Yeah, well, I'm in that industry and I'm a bit of an old hippie, and I've always been fascinated by Janis Joplin and a lot of the women rockers or singers that have come out of that, because it's sort of not easy sometimes being in a man's world in those days. And Janis was such an interesting subject. When I started reading about her, I just realised how she resonates with a lot of the issues that we're facing today. She was heavily bullied at school. She had issues with her parents. She had issues, obviously, with drug and alcohol abuse. She was always looking for that one special love in her life, which she never quite found. She sort of experimented with her sexuality as well, and that also ostracised her amongst her community and also her family. So she suffered a lot of self-esteem issues. So the more I read about her, the more I thought, I just think she's such an interesting subject matter and a bit of a trailblazer. She didn't sort of ever worry too much about what people thought on the outside, but I think she obviously did so much on the inside, because it comes across a lot in her music.
She was a bright light that shone for a while, but was taken well before her time. In fact, she's a member of the 27 Club that she shares with people like Jimi Hendrix, Jim Morrison, Brian Jones, Kurt Cobain, all with their own issues. She definitely a member.
Yeah, she died way too young. I mean, that was an accident. I mean, she did overdose, but the story behind that, which we also share in the show, is she was recording Pearl, her most acclaimed album, and she died during that, so she never actually saw that finished. And she was out of town, and her so-called fiancé was supposed to get her some stuff, and she couldn't be found, so she got onto another dealer that she wasn't familiar with. And he delivered the concoction that she thought was her usual concoction, but it turned out it was, 5 or 6 times stronger than what she normally had. And on that night, I believe 8 people died from that particular dosage.
I understand that you've travelled to the United States and you've got actually approval from the Joplin estate, which is quite some achievement.
It is, because they actually, I remember a couple of years ago, they stopped a show going on Broadway the day before it was due to go on because they hadn't given it the thumbs up. So, so I travelled, I did a lot of research and a lot of reading, and part of that research was going to Houston, in Port Arthur, where she's from, which is a town down on the Gulf there, a mining town. And there's a museum there that pays homage to her and all the other famous people that have come out of that area. And I just, talking to some people, I can see why she wanted to escape it, though. There's not much happening in Port Arthur, that's for sure. Bit of a quiet place. Nothing goes on there. And she used to run away a lot over the state border to Louisiana, where her and a couple of the other town misfits who didn't seem to fit in with the expectations of what the all-American people should be like, they would run across the state and go to blues bars, and where all the black singers would hang out and sing the blues and jazz, and that's where she really fell in love with that type of music. Janis was always more of a blues soul singer than a rock singer, and I think at the beginning of her singing career she would be put with rock groups, which always she found a little bit disjointed, and that's where she come undone a lot of the times. But fascinating character.
It's going to be quite a show.
And there's some wonderful imagery and footage that support the show. So as we cover all the 22 hits that she had, and Janis wrote a lot of stuff, but Janis also did a lot of other people's songs, and she gave them a certain treatment so they delivered quite differently than what you imagine, and she certainly put such a good twist on things. So as well as all the hits, we tell her story in all little tidbits like I've just shared with you. There's lots more, obviously, and all supported by imagery and footage and some live interviews of Janis. So it's a real experience, and that's why they're called rockumentaries. It's like watching a live documentary on stage. So the audience will come away fully informed, and it's meant for not only the baby boomers, but there's a study guide we have with it for any, Gen Y or any of the younger generation that are looking into
What it's about.
society and culture of before, so we can support high schools and music students with a study guide and encourage those guys to come along. There's not many shows where you can get, the teenager, the mum and the grandma to come along and they all will get something out of it. A good opportunity for the family.
I like that idea very much indeed. Chris, I thank you very much for speaking with us today, and I wish you every success with the show.
Thank you so much for the support. We're really looking forward to coming there. Thank you so much. Have a great week.
We've been speaking with Chris Keeble, the writer and producer from Pearl, the Janis Joplin story, at the Capitol Theatre on Saturday the 17th of March from 8. Tickets at the box office or GoTix.